Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars, come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
My dad was really, really special, and I loved my dad a lot.
I'm proud of him, and that even though he isn't here with us, but he died as a true hero.
I miss everything about him.
In the moment that the officers and I had to come see the children, my biggest reaction was, I don't have 7 arms. I have 7 children who just lost their father, and I don't have 7 arms to wrap around them.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families.
To not have to worry financially is a huge peace of mind. The thought of, what in the world will I possibly do to pay the bills? How will I possibly let the children have a life that feels normal? I don't want them to have to quit their piano lessons or their basketball. I don't want them to feel that we have to move into a little apartment and struggle financially in addition to the emotional weight.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Tunnel to Towers is honoring those heroes that risked their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
Those who serve us and then lay down their lives protecting our freedoms and our safety, the least we can do is $11 a month to give them that peace of always knowing there's a home, there's that sanctuary when life feels like it's been tipped upside down, because it has, when you lose a parent in the line of duty, to know you can go home, you can be safe, there's no risk of losing your home. That's a peace of mind that I can't believe you can get for $11 a month.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts.
Please donate $11 a month by calling 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
And good Thursday night, ladies and gentlemen, right here live on KLRnradio.com. Hopefully you're hanging around post-culture shift, and you'll be hanging out with me and Jen for close to an hour. Then we'll be heading over into the saloon for a last call to grab a drink. But I'm here. I'm live. She's with me, the beautiful, and for some reason tonight we both sound a little raspy, but mine's because I have fires going off everywhere. So good evening, ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm always a little raspy. If you don't remember, way back in the day when I first came on air with you, there are a few people who were like, "Oh, her like raspy, whatever voice," and I was like, "Funny enough, when I was waiting tables, like years and years ago, I had this particular group of people that would come in for brunch on Sunday, and they were with what we do know is a madam. And I don't say that because we suspected. I mean, we know she was. And she surrounded herself with like 4 to 8 gay guys that always came in, and several of them were like, "Ooh, have you ever considered doing 900 numbers?" I was like, "What?" They're like, "We got someone we can get you in touch with." I'm like, "Okay, no thanks." But you make a lot of money, and I'm like, "Yeah, but I would never be able to say the things and whatever that I would need to make that money." It just wasn't going to happen.
But yeah, no, it's funny because MD caught when I was doing a show the other day. MD heard my rasp, and he's like, "Don't you be trying to steal Jen's stick. She makes it sound a hell of a lot better than me." I know, but thanks for pointing it out.
I love MD. That's awesome. Anyways, but yeah, doing good.
According to Amish, you check one of the boxes of Kathleen Turner because he says that's why Kathleen Turner was so damn hot too.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna take that any other way than as a compliment, because she does have a great voice.
Oh, so anyway, I have to be honest. I have been dealing with medical situations. I haven't been keeping up with the news much today, but it's not like there's not a plethora of things to talk about. I did find an interesting article from PJ Media today talking about the effects of Trump starting the trend to go after the ghost fleet that nobody's really talking about yet, because now India is going after them too. And it won't be long until a few other folks are going after them. And I had no idea these people were like falsifying. I mean, I knew they were falsifying their registries. I had no idea. And for some reason, it never occurred to me that also meant that they were having to falsify their insurance. So yeah, there's a whole big mess about to implode. And it turns out that's how Russia's been making most of its money. So if all the countries start seizing that ghost fleet, the war in Ukraine might dry up really, really fast. It's kind of an interesting little side twist.
Had not heard about that. I'll have to check it out, but it's not surprising, obviously. Fraud is rampant. And like I've talked about the last few weeks, like with my new-ish job now, not totally new anymore, but new-ish. It's not always the most overt ways that you think of. And when people say, well, so it gives to both sides. When the one side says, "There's definitely fraud, it's not been exposed yet," and then the other side says, "Well, there's no fraud. We've seen this in this very few cases," and blah, 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 blah. It's like, first of all, like when you're not looking for it, of course you can't find any. I mean, if we just stop, I've given examples here in Austin, working downtown in the entertainment industry and on the bar scene, that when police are given a directive to not arrest or cite for things they typically do on a very busy big weekend, then it looks like those things aren't happening anymore. Even though they still are, they're just not doing what they normally would do for them. So that's not really a good indicator of if there is or isn't that kind of behavior going on. Same thing with fraud. And also that fraud is insidious. It happens in a lot of different ways. And like working how I do right now, one of the ways that like continues to happen, where it's like, no, it's not outright ballot stuffing, but it is all these little ways that add up, which is like, we're supposed to be given fair representation. Both parties are allowed to have judges, all judges and clerks at every election precinct table. And they do this whole thing where they go, oh yeah, no, you're allowed to, but then they take forever to get back to the people that we placed and sent them their placement for. And then they call them once, and if they don't answer the phone and confirm, yes, I'm wanting to be at that, if they miss that phone call or if they miss that email, then they go, okay, see, so now we can place our own person there because you didn't have anybody, because they didn't respond, which they're supposed to give them several more weeks, like, you know, all the kind of thing. Like, they are supposed to be able to call back, or they're supposed to reach out again. And then they do things like, so they delay like contacting so that they don't have to place the Republican judges, the Republican alt judges. And by the way, y'all, I'm not talking about judges as in like law. I'm talking about what we call an election judge, an election alt judge, which anybody who is in good standing, a citizen, and can pass a background check, can get the training for, and then volunteer to do this. And they'll just like delay that until it's like the deadline. And then they can go, oh, well, we called them once right before the deadline. And you're like, we placed them 5 weeks ago. So the first time you called them was 2 days before the deadline, and they didn't answer that one time at 8 a.m. So anyways, it's like, it's all these little things that add up, or going, well, we didn't have enough people to do this, so then we put our own people in. Okay, so we didn't have this that happened, and you didn't get back to us on that in a timely manner. And you're like, what was the timely manner? You were supposed to have all month. So it's all those ways in which it adds up to being not necessarily like fraud, again, like ballot stuffing, but it's fraudulent practice. And that continues to undermine an actual fair election, and allows for them to not have kind of the checks and balances on the process. And I feel like that's something that has been the most eye-opening to me about all of it, is obviously then if that's happening here, that happens everywhere. And that's what you even see like in your own life, whether it's your job or you've got a nefarious mother-in-law or something. They manipulate things to where then you can't do what you were doing. Like, they wait until the last minute, and then they don't get the adequate response, and then they can claim you're at fault. Those are the kinds of things that then are manipulative and impact and affect the process in a way that's, you know, just it's just nefarious. It just is. Like, if you thought that everything that you're doing is above board, then you would just do it at the moment you're supposed to, and not wait until you can then pass the buck and act like, oh no, it's not. Then what's the point? Like, if you're not cheating, then why wouldn't you just place all these people that are on my Republican roll? Why wouldn't, and by the same token, Democrats, like, why would, if you were in a Republican county or majority Republican county and you were doing that to the Democrats, absolutely that would be unfair and it would be not right. But it's just a way to like avoid accountability and be like, well, we tried. We waited till the last minute, but we did try. And then you didn't, you know, and it's just, it's very frustrating. And then they're so incredibly nice when I get them on the phone and I talk to them. I go, hey, so my person that said this, and one of the other things that's been happening recently is, so early voting started on Tuesday, on February 17th here in Texas for the primary. And one of the things that I found, which normally people wouldn't do, so we submit people for early voting positions, and then we submit them for election day positions. So sometimes I have people that would contact me and they'd say, hey, I'm down to do this on election day, but I'm also available for early voting. And I go, okay, cool. I'm going to email them and tell them blah, blah, blah. And that's how we have to do it documented. So it has to be email. I can phone call too to follow up, but we have to have it in writing. So it has to be via email initially. And so I'll do that. And then I finally had this sweet lady that messaged me back, tagged Travis County Elections Division on it and said, I mean, not tagged, CC'd, because she was replying to all of us when I sent her info. And she said, "Hey, Jennifer, great to talk to Juan today. And we got me placed for election day, and I'm super excited. They did tell me that they didn't need any more volunteers for early voting. So if anybody drops out, let me know." It was like a week and a half ago. I responded and I said, "Hi, I'm going to call you in 1 second." And I called her and I said, "What do you mean they told you they didn't need any more early voting?" But she said, "Oh yeah, they said they were all set." So I called my boss and I'm like, "Excuse me, I thought we were still doing early voting placements up until the weekend, like last weekend, like February 13th to 14th. She goes, "We are." And I said, "Oh, well, they just told one of my contacts that they didn't need any more early voting place." And she was like, "What?" So then I pick up the phone and call the elections division. And I said, "Hi, I just got a phone call from so-and-so. And they told me that you didn't need any more early voting placements." I said, "Oh, that must have been a miscommunication. I don't know where she got that idea." "No, does she want to do early voting too?" "Absolutely. We can plug her in." "Okay, we'll email and call her right now. We'll CC you on the email." So it's just always this feigned ignorance, and it's a miscommunication, a misunderstanding. So I thought, how many other people have I sent them they didn't do that with? It's harder for them to do it about election day because it's just one single day that we have spots to fill in. But early voting has multiple shifts, and obviously across the course of like 3 weeks. So I ended up finding everybody that I could keyword in my emails that I sent that had said to me that they were available for early voting too. And I just emailed all of them and asked them, like, "Did you get turned down for early voting, or did you get placed for early voting?" And I got at least 8 responses that told me, "Oh no, they said they were all good for early voting."
The bastages.
So I think people really misunderstand how this happens and how insidious it is. It's not flat out stealing votes. It's the way in which they kind of undermine the process. It's not disenfranchisement, but it does disenfranchise like one party from being able to have representation, in the process during the election, to be able to have checks and balances to monitor, because, there are people that will skirt the rules a little bit. There are people that will ignore certain things. There are people that will bully. And I know that happens both ways, but in a very liberal jurisdiction, obviously the concern is that the minority is not being adequately represented and that the process isn't fair, to be monitored in that regard. And they're doing it consistently. I mean, and they just lie to us and they go, "Oh no, we didn't say that, or we didn't mean that, or they must have misunderstood. And so let's put them here anyways." And oh man, it's just kind of exhausting, and playing the two parts and having to like still be nice, but they're not really able to be held accountable unless we sue later. It's just infuriating. Just infuriating. And like I said, it may not change any vote outcome, but it definitely does discourage, people from being active participants in our democratic process, because they're telling them we don't need you, or you shouldn't be here, and all that kind of thing. And that's what ends up then affecting the overall election, in ways that, are not as measurable as stolen votes or fraudulent votes. It still impacts the process, though, in an unfair manner. And that is harder to prove and rectify, but you see it when you work on this on a regular basis, way more than I ever thought. So, man, people get involved, go local, and be aware and be engaged of how this all works and how you can personally, or someone or what affect it. And in most jurisdictions in Texas, anybody can be a poll watcher. And that is also an important role that doesn't mean just sitting at the table checking IDs. So I just encourage people to get involved and get familiar with how your county, your precinct, your state operates elections. And it's very much a way to be a watchdog and make sure that they are doing it right and they are being held accountable, because even though those of us getting paid to do that have a hard time still making that happen. But the more of us, the better.
Yeah. No, I mean, and well, the interesting thing about that is, it all sounds innocent when it's like, well, that wasn't actually what we meant. But it's funny how much that happens everywhere. Like, just not to give away too much information, but I was helping somebody who was in the hospital today. They called me in a panic because they were like, the hospital says if I don't do this, they're either going to make me leave or transfer me to another hospital. So I'm one of their emergency contacts. So I went up there, and everybody was all fine and sweet to my face. And then the second I left, as soon as I got back in the driveway, they called me freaking out. They're like, I don't know why they didn't say any of this when you were here, but now they're telling me, even though they said everything was fixed and we were squared away, that now we're back to this again. And I'm just, it's like nobody gives. I mean, and we're talking about medical professionals with this stuff. I mean, so if nobody cares about that important of a job anymore, I can imagine how hard it is to get people that, are volunteering to actually give a damn. Because it's just, it's like everybody's give a damn is just busted. They phone everything in, they do things half-assed, or they just don't care. You've got doctors that are basically violating the first oath they ever take of, first do no harm, because it's all about the bottom line anymore. And it's just, so I can only imagine, especially since
Well, and by the way,
for you.
I am also not naive enough to think that in very red counties and very red states, there's some of the opposite going on. And you know what I mean? Like, I think there is that group of people that kind of control it, and they're like, well, this is how it is, and it's how it's always been, and we don't want your kind here, kind of deal. And I just mean everybody, as if you want to have a greater impact on the civics of our democracy than in Democratic Republic, obviously, you know what I mean, but our democratic process. And if you would we could all use for people to be accountable and held accountable and have someone looking over their shoulder to make sure that they are in these sorts of situations. So even in a red county where there are some Democrats that want to go into it, they should not be denied that either. They should also be allowed to. I'm sorry I have to do the both sides thing, but I'm not sorry, because it really should be fair, and we should all be striving towards that, and we should all be striving for us to have the most fair and unencumbered voting process as possible, as is our right as Americans.
No,
Which
I agree.
is part of what makes us the most unique in this world, even amongst the Western world.
No, I completely agree. It's just what drives me crazy anymore is, and it's ingrained in everything that we have, like the paperwork that you fill out when you register to vote. That's basically the honor system. In this country, we used to have this thing called an honor system, and it doesn't seem to exist anymore for a good bit of the country. They're just out kind of doing whatever they think they can get away with, which is, I think, as much as I would like participation across all boards, etc. I have a feeling some of these people that may be, volunteering in red counties that are leaning blue might be some of the people that are like, oh no, we're full up, you're good. No, we don't need you. I have a sneaking suspicion.
I agree. Well, hey, so not political, but can be tied in a little bit to politics. Can we talk about the Olympics for a second? I know I touched on it a little bit last week, but we're in the final days of the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan. And I know, like, there's a lot of people that have been turned off because they saw at the very beginning a few athletes had some less than favorable answers about the political climate in America right now and social things going on in America right now. And that's kind of what ramped up the charge of being like anti-Olympics, anti-American Team USA athletes. particularly amongst conservatives. But I do want to remind people that those were like, it was like 3 out of hundreds of Team USA. And there have been plenty more that have been extremely patriotic, very grateful, outspokenly so. And we've had a couple really good performances in the last few days, today in particular, that I just think are really cool and something we're celebrating as an American. There's been some phenomenal performances, and I come from a family that has always enjoyed the Olympics. We've always gotten very rah-rah about it. There are sports that we know better than others. And then there are those that we become experts on in that 1 week of events that they're happening, which is hilarious. And I've watched Twitter do the same thing. It's so fun and cool. And I know there are a lot of people that are just like, well, those ungrateful American athletes. Let me remind you, it was only a handful. There are hundreds that are doing so, they're representing this country, that are very proud to do so. And they've made some monumental achievements, which I think is always a great kind of, I think the Olympics, Team USA, the prowess we show in certain sports can be so unifying. And at a time when I think this country needs it, I think that's awesome for us to be able to all agree that, this gold medal performance was inspiring. It was cool. It was awesome. And one of those today was Alyssa Liu. She won the women's figure skating gold medal, the first one an American has won since 2002. So we've been on a little bit of a drought, and that's not super unusual. I mean, we've had some dominance here or there, and we've always been in the mix. But figure skating, I was born in the 80s. Anybody that was born before that, you knew that like in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, I mean, that was a Soviet bloc sport. Like they dominated, they won, and in fact, kind of got in trouble for it, because not just because of the athletes being coerced and doped and all those kinds of things, but also because the judges were fixed. But we had a comeback story for the Agents. She's also an immigrant. She's from an immigrant family. She was born here, but her dad immigrated. He actually sought asylum and was granted it because he was a part of the uprising and protests of the revolution in China during the time of Tiananmen Square, had to go into hiding and eventually exiled to the United States, and was granted legal status, had his family here, and raised a daughter, as opposed to Eileen Gu, raised a daughter who has now proudly represented her country. And they were offered by the CCP. They were intimidated by them. She actually almost didn't compete in Beijing, didn't go to Beijing because her dad was so worried about her safety, because they sent Chinese spies to try to coerce and intimidate the family for her to compete for China, because that's where her parents were from. And it's incredible. It is an immigrant story. And I've seen some people be like, okay, now MAGA is like immigrant. No, we like immigrants. This is a national story. This is absolutely something to be celebrated, and what they've overcome and how they've embraced this country. And now their daughter is competing on the world stage and wins a gold medal. And how effing cool is that she does so without denigrating the country she's representing, honoring her parents, and also said, fuck you to the CCP for the millions that Eileen Gu has now wallowed in.
Honey, that's hoe.
Exactly. She has been the poster child for it all night. And the media has been pushing her as much as possible. Oh, it's so cool. And I'm honoring my mom's heritage. Bullshit. You fucking took money. They're like, why are they treating her as a traitor and not these other people that have competed for other countries that are Americans? Well, couple reasons. Number one, they didn't take millions from an adversary and act as a traitor, because it's also kind of weird that miraculously China doesn't allow for dual citizenship, but when you're the elite of the elite and you represent them and they pay you money, you can do whatever you want, because she hasn't had to renounce her U.S. citizenship, and she trains and lives in the United States, but represents China and takes their millions. So that's one reason. Another reason is because a lot of people that do end up representing other countries either A, have dual citizenship or come to get dual citizenship. And part of doing that is because they were going to be on the bubble or on the outside of making a U.S. team. So because we do have highly competitive sports here, particularly for the Olympics. So you can kind of understand how this guy that's going to go represent Italy or Israel or Spain, who has both heritage, they're Americans, but they have family and they can claim that citizenship, and those countries allow dual citizenship, that they were maybe not quite good enough to make the U.S. team, but they are good enough to make these other countries' teams. Because remember, I mean, the United States has very highly competitive atmosphere in most of these sports. So making this team here, you are going to have some of the best sit out from the Olympics because we have a quota on how many we can send. It doesn't always mean that they're not good enough to win something at the Olympics or at the World Cup or whatever, the European Cup or whatever else world international competitions they're going to go compete in. But it does mean that we're only allowed X amount of athletes. And so of those, we can only have our top 3 or our top 5 or our top 8 or whatever it is, depending on the sport, depending on the quota. And so there are some of these that are ranked 9th in the world, 5th in the world, and they can't compete for the U.S. So if they do have another affiliation they can claim, if they want to go compete for Spain, they want to go, but they weren't the top cream of the crop in the U.S., then that still makes them one of the top in the world, and them going to compete for those countries doesn't exactly signal betrayal. It signals like, good for you. You weren't going to be able to be on Team USA, so go do that. They still usually are like, oh, I'm from the United States, but I'm glad to represent my mom's country, my dad's and my grandfather's, whatever it is. And it's not for the money. It's for the ability to compete and be there, to go to the Olympics, to have that once in a lifetime opportunity that otherwise is not afforded to them based on our quota and the competitiveness in the United States. And some of them end up winning with those countries. And we don't begrudge them the same way we do Eileen, because Eileen could have been, her and Chloe Kim, at the top of the U.S. snowboarding, skiing, whatever. Like, I'm using Chloe. I mean, Eileen's not snowboarding, but could have been like Chloe Kim, who also comes from an immigrant family, like Alyssa Liu, and could have been at the top of Team USA, would have been winning medals for Team USA, and chose to take money to represent China instead. And she can claim it's about her mom's heritage. It's bullshit. She was given money, and that's where she went. And that's the difference. It's a little bit sellout situation. There's a guy that's competing for Israel right now that has dual citizenship. But you know what he did? He put his money where his mouth was, and he moved to Israel to train for the last 10 years. So he's been living there, and he's competing there, and he's competing for them. And so it just doesn't resonate the same as someone that could be one of our top competitors and was born and raised in this country, has been trained in this country all their life, takes every advantage from this country, and then just says, nah, I'm going to take money from this one to go do it for them instead. It's just not the same.
I mean, it kind of sounds like Karma won the day, though, if I'm understanding.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's won some stuff, but she did not have a great day today. But you've got Alyssa, her dad comes from where he comes from, and how all that went down. And they actually had to, he wasn't going to let her go to the Beijing Olympics until her story is even better, because they were getting all these threats. Chinese spies tried to impersonate official Olympic Committee representatives to get their passports and to get their identity information. And they caught on to it. No. And so he actually wasn't going to let her go to Beijing because he was in fear of her safety. And they got the State Department involved. Some people say the FBI was part of it. I'm not really sure if that's confirmed. But I do know the State Department was involved and guaranteed her safety. And so that's why he let her go. And then she was a prodigy, and she ended up having kind of a crash out at the Olympics, just did not severely underperformed. Retired from the sport, said it's no fun. I'm burned out. This sucks. And retired for 2 years, came back 2 years later, full force started training, said, I'm going to skate for me. I love to do it, and I'm going to skate how I love to do it, and I'm not going to be controlled. I'm not going to be told anything. I'm going to do it how I want to do it. Went on a tear, absolutely killed it in 2025, leading up to this Olympics, and came in here. And I wouldn't say she was, like, I think by all accounts, she wasn't exactly favored for like a total win, but she definitely was in contention for a medal, but it would have been the comeback story. It would have been the redemption tour. And sure enough, she fucking did it. She fucking did it, and she won gold. And the entire time, she has a smile on her face. She is just chill. She is excited for everybody. She's rooting on all these other USA teams, showing up at events, hanging out, even in the team skate category. She performed one day. Amber Glenn performed the next, which I know is one of the ones that people were mad about because she was all like, I'm queer and pride and blah, 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 blah. And she's struggled in her, in her efforts here, but they won gold with the team. And then she comes in, just has a skate of her life and wins and just wins. And one of the very first things she does is she goes over to the bronze medalist who realized she was getting bronze, who was not quite expecting it, and celebrates her before she celebrates her own gold. And there's some people that are like, well, she was, some of the woke crowd was like, true queen because she stood on that podium and didn't sing the national anthem. First of all, stood there, hand over her heart, very much taking in the moment. She was obviously kind of under her breath singing it the whole time. But what really proves her, and I don't have any problem with reverence. Like, if you don't sing the whole thing, I know people put a lot of weight on that. They're like, oh, they sang and knew every word. The U.S. hockey team did. That was really cool. Fucking won gold, beat Canada, by the way, in overtime, after being down with 2 minutes left in the game. And then they come back to tie it, and they come back to win in overtime, which was just a fucking nasty goal, by the way. But they all sang it loud and proud, and people love that. And I know we all, as like, especially conservative Americans, love to see that display. I don't really think that means that you're not American if you stand there and you put your hand over your heart and you just listen and you watch and you take in the moment. You're not singing every word. I don't think that discounts your patriotism. But what she did do, so like I said, some of the libs, some of the woke were like, oh, she didn't do this. And so that proves that she's still like doing a silent protest. And I'm like, if she was doing a silent protest, why would she stand there and put her hand over her heart? Number one. And then secondly, why would she be kind of under her breath singing? And then when it got to the final part, she said, very ecstatically out loud, went, land of the free. That now just undercuts everything else she said about how she was like protesting, her silent protest against this country. No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't. Just making shit up.
They do that though.
I know. Anyways, it was just a cool moment today with the U.S. hockey teams, with the U.S. hockey team, with them. Women got into the semifinals for curling as well. And it's just been, we are Norway's in the lead with medals, and, Summer Olympics are our jam. Winter Olympics, we always have some really key players in certain sports that really prevail. But we're never expected to be at the top of the leaderboard for gold medals in the Winter Olympics. We are not an entirely winter country like some of these are. So that's expected. But still, we have put on some stellar performances. And after a couple of disappointing losses, it was a really fun day to be an Olympic fan and a fan of this country and who is representing them. It was very cool.
I just liked watching the European Union break down because we won the gold in hockey for women.
They are not handling it well.
They
And
were
along with being accused of cheating in curling, it's been a whole wild ride for the Canadians, I must say. Our very unhappy hat of the North today.
Yeah, they're definitely the unhappy head of the North. But yeah, it was funny because there was one guy who started trash talking and then locked replies because he was getting dragged. So I quote tweeted him and said, I would say to stick to syrup, but Vermont has better. So I don't know.
Anyways, that's just my spiel. I think that if you enjoy sports and you enjoy, this country, I think it's worthwhile to still watch and to encourage these athletes, and don't let a few bad apples spoil the fun, because those bad apples are exactly what they are. And everybody else, should not discount the performance and the absolute graciousness of everybody else there, who continuously say they are so grateful to be representing their country.
No, Rex, she means me. She's mad at me because I don't know why. I stopped paying attention. But anyway.
Hi, Zelda.
But yeah, no. So yeah, that was definitely entertaining. I have to admit, I haven't really been keeping up with the Olympics this year. But I have been keeping up with the stories after the Olympics, because I've been kind of keeping up with other stuff and still trying to recover from this never-ending crud. And now we have fires everywhere, so now I have, smoke inhalation, even though there's not any around me. There's the wind's been high enough that I get all the effects of being in a fire without actually being in a fire. It's been
great.
Been entertaining. But yeah, so one of the other stories that I definitely want to talk about tonight as we come to the end of the program is exactly what we told everybody would happen a long time ago when they first started talking about these lawsuits against these transgender care providers for children. When those first started being talked about, we were one of the first groups here at KLR Radio on several shows, including this one, that pointed out when they started losing those lawsuits, and we knew they would, that these things would start falling like dominoes. There's now a list of dozens of hospitals that are stopping transgender care on children. So
yes.
I count that as a victory.
Well, and you saw Jill Flibnovik's tweet, right? That she's since deleted.
I think I missed that one.
Okay. Let me scroll to it real quick because I have to get through all of my Olympics tweets first. Oh yeah, she said, if we're going to ban gender affirming surgeries for minors, we should ban all cosmetic surgery for minors. A 15-year-old should not be getting a nose job. A 16-year-old should not be getting a boob job. Exceptions, of course, for medically necessary procedures. Everybody going, your terms are acceptable. Like the misreading of this, of like being so much in your bubble that you make a very common sense and mutually agreed upon statement, thinking that you're doing it as a gotcha to your political opponent, is the exact reason why we're like, you're in a fucking bubble. That she thought that was actually going to resonate and like hit us hard, where we'd be like, oh, I don't know. What about those 16-year-old boob jobs? We really support them. We really like those. It was just so incredible. And she just rightly got ripped. I'm like, not the 16-year-old boob jobs. No, we forever love those. I mean, like, duh, we're opposed to all of that. I had a couple friends that had to have nose jobs in their teens. But again, that falls under her medically necessary because their nose was broken multiple times. They had to fix a septum issue for a deviated septum, where they were like would have otherwise had to be on a CPAP machine at like 15 years old. These are not things that we disagree with you on. And she figured that out quickly and deleted it. And it was hilarious because, like, collectively, the right, the left, the middle were like, yeah, okay. We're good with that.
I mean, I don't know a single 16-year-old that, their parents would be like, yeah, sure, you can get a boob job. No.
So my one of my good friends that I met when I moved to New York, and I lived with her, and I didn't meet her until the moment I knocked on the door. I said, "Hi, I'm your roommate." I talked on the phone with her twice. She is actually from your neck of the woods. She's from Ardmore and went to OU. And so she's one of my very first Sooner babes that I love so much. Y'all infiltrate my life at every turn, I swear. Between my family and the friends I make, all my Sooners. But she did have a boob job when she was 16. Not the kind like that, though. She had a reduction.
Yeah.
Because she was 5 nothing and had like a G cup. And it was doing harm to her spine. And she was having neck issues and migraines. And they told her, like, and her parents, like, we'll have to do this now. And then you'll probably have to have another one when you're actually like finished growing in your early to mid 20s. And she did. But again, that's a medically necessary situation. And she wasn't adding anything on. I know someone else that had one size and another size. And so they fixed it to make them match. She still didn't do that till she was 18. But like, no, none of us are like, yeah, go get that boob job, girl, when they're 16. And the parents are like, cool. Like their conservative parent from Arkansas is like, I'm supporting this. That's not happening. So anyways, it was really hilarious. She walked it back.
But yeah, so so I take it back. I did see it. I saw it from Doug Powers over at Twitchy as a quote tweet, and I didn't ever really pay that much attention to what he was quote tweeting until I just went back and looked a second ago. He was like, your terms are acceptable.
Yep.
So.
I like that Neon Taster Gnome Bloom said, my favorite form of partisan ignorance is when someone proposes a compromise with the other side while asking for a concession that literally none of them ever wanted, as though people who oppose gender transition surgery for kids love the idea of them getting cosmetic surgery. Like, no, we don't.
Yeah, no. That's kind of the whole point.
I just want to say really quick to all my friends observing Lent, I found this hilarious. This account said, oh, you're off Twitter for Lent? Lent is about suffering. You should be here 24/7.
Yeah, I actually made that joke with somebody once. She was like, I'm giving up social media for Lent. I'm like, shouldn't you be on it for Lent since that's more about suffering?
Yeah, it's kind of more how it goes.
I'm not Catholic, so I just give up giving up for Lent.
Well, we didn't have to do, I don't know. It was always like a little bit, I guess, growing up in it, you did what children could do. So you couldn't make it too broad because then that makes it hard to achieve. So it was always like one thing. Like if your favorite treat is Snickers, then like you don't have Snickers for Lent. And that was the great way to like allow for a child's brain to wrap around it and then also have a little bit of sacrifice. It wasn't always this all-encompassing, like, I can't do this whole big thing the whole time, like no Twitter or no this or whatever. And that's fine for people that want to do that. I was just always in a family and in a parish where we did very specific things that you could really hold yourself accountable for. And that made sense to do that.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, well, my parents weren't super religious growing up anyway. I basically got shipped off to Bible school on Sundays and on summer break just so they'd have a break. So they were like, we're gonna have a church come pick you up and take you to church. I'm like, well, you guys going? No, we don't go to church. Why am I going to church? You don't go to church. Anyway.
So the other thing is, and I know you've probably talked about this on other stuff this week, but the James Tallarico here in Texas, the whole thing with Colbert.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the misunderstanding between equating the fairness doctrine with equal time and like what that, and they're like, oh no, they've had these people on, yet not 30, 90 days before an election, not literally the night before early voting starts in the state of Texas in which he's running. You know, there's a difference about a candidate that is about to be voted upon and what those rules entail. And, you know, then of course them lying and say that Trump pressured them and Brendan Carr did and all that kind of thing. And it's like, no, actually CS Legal reviewed it, gave them a warning. The Late Show decided not to air it. And so that they wouldn't have to have Jasmine Crockett on, not just Jasmine Crockett, but the third person in the race. Can't even pronounce his name. No one cares. No one knows. But
wait, that was a dude?
What?
The third person was a dude, because I saw a very small picture and it looked like a heavy-set Mexican woman.
No, it's like Muslim. He's like Muslim or something.
Oh, oops, I said that.
He has an Ahmed or something name. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't want to be that person, but I don't know. Don't care. I live here and I've hardly seen him. So whatever. But, and also that has to be triggered by the candidate. They have to request it, like all that kind of thing. And obviously Jasmine Crockett would absolutely raise hell on that. And she did. And she even was like, it wasn't them. It wasn't Trump. Like for once, she was like, it wasn't Trump. It's what it's supposed to be, you know, all that kind of shit. And anyways, one of my things about how, first of all, I think it did exactly what they wanted to do. I think they were never going to air it because they were aware of this and they knew what the repercussions would be if they did, and they'd have to have Jasmine on, they'd have to have this under candidate on, like all that kind of shit. But I really think it was the goal was to get the YouTube views, to put it out on X, to act persecuted, play the victim, absolutely be anti-Trump, all that kind of shit. Raise the money. I mean, he raised $2.7 million over fucking night. Most of Texas doesn't know who this guy is, and the ones that do don't like him. And so you did a couple things here. First of all, by not having Crockett on and by going against Crockett, by making this publicity, basically endorsing him as Stephen Colbert, you pretty much dismissed all the Democratic Texan voters that are Black that already weren't going to vote for this guy if he defeated her in the primary. They certainly will not now. They will not come out and vote. Not saying they're going to vote for the Republican. They certainly will not vote for him after this primary, after this. It's just completely dismissed them, acted like, you know, fuck you. So that's one. Also, he's really unlikable. He's a false prophet. He plays all these different sides. He's too smarmy, all this shit. He's not going to go over well, but ha ha ha, Colbert being a dismissive of a Black woman to promote a white man. Isn't that funny? And the libs are all raising the roof over it. But second of all, I think it's a really sneaky way to get around the rules here. I think that if you're going to put it on your YouTube, you're going to put it on your various like mainstream platforms, but not be on your network, then you shouldn't be allowed to use your network set, use your network production team, use their resources and all of their reach to then get around the rule of we didn't have them on. Like you still use the set, you still use the studio, you still use the crew, you still like from film, management, production, lighting, everything. You use everything from your network that was provided for you by your network, paid for by the network, and then just posted it to your YouTube. That's very different than like, say, a Hannity being on his Fox News show and then going to his private studio and doing this at his private studio. Colbert did it on his network studio, on his network set. And then use that and then went, oh no, they won't let us do it. Oh, bad Trump, bad Brendan Carr, bad CC. And still used it, all the benefits, and then get to play victim. I think that should disqualify that in and of itself. If you're going to say it's not through this medium, then you can't be using that medium. You can't be using the set. You can't be using the crew. You can't be using the paid, directors, lighting, sound, everything else that's involved that came from CBS.
Well, to be fair, he's only going to have access for like another 2 months. So
I'm just saying though, like I think that should be a smackdown that's had. That should be a slap that is given. It's like, okay, you can do that, but you got to go to your own studio like Joe Rogan. You got to go to your own studio like Hannity, or even, freaking Bill O'Reilly did back in the day when he did his radio versus his Fox show. Like, you can't do it with our resources and then claim on it, like not being accountable. I think that's a big fucking flag that we'll need to, and all this got to catch up now. It's all got to catch up. I know we're out of time, but I think that's coming down the pike in the future about these kinds of rules and regulations. And it's all kind of murky with podcasts and all of that kind of stuff. But I think that's going to be something that's going to have to be examined going forward.
I mean, technically, we're still live on your feed. Mine have gone off. So
anyways,
where can folks find you real quick so we can wrap?
Jay Homestead pretty much everywhere, and then also Misfits Politics. So check us out.
All right. As far as for me, I'll be back tomorrow morning. Well, I say morning. It's not really morning anymore. It's still morning for me, but it's late morning. Noon Eastern time. I have a special guest, Jeff Dornick, is going to be joining me to discuss the social media app that he's launched. They officially, it's been a social media website. It's now officially turning into a social media app, though. So he wants to come on and talk about that for a while and some other stuff. So he'll be joining me for hour 1. Hour 2 will kind of be a free-for-all, back 3 p.m. Eastern for Weekend News Roundup. Tomorrow night, Aggie is still out and off doing family stuff. So there will be a special edition of Kingdom and Country where we delve into the Antichrist and the false prophet, because I keep seeing all these reels claiming that, without naming any names, that Elon Musk is the false prophet, and that would make Donald Trump the Antichrist. So we're going to do a deep dive on that for about 90 minutes. And make sure you hang out for the new D&D stuff dropping right after I finish. But we got to get out of here because it looks like it's not letting things change over for BZ till I shut down. Oh, wait, nope, there it goes. Yeah, we did finally drop off. So, okay. But anyway, I also don't want to eat into his airtime. So we'll be back next week. I'll be back tomorrow, apparently 3 times because I'm a glutton for punishment, but it's kind of what I do. And also Juxtaposition Saturday night. So make sure you guys come back for that too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.